Hi, this is K.N.Fitzwater. You're watching my channel. Today we are continuing on with our life beginning and always. Where we last left off, we are done with our long day in sandcastles. We did the fireflies. Now we are continuing on to shopping. To leave grown up for last, I figured by the title it was a good way to end things because we are dealing with growing up and transitions and things changing. So I thought it was more apt. And thus, we're starting with shopping. Cove's dad. Come back here before it gets dark, alright, sport? The familiar voice drifted across the street and drew your attention away from the snow you've been watching inch slowly across the pavement. Cove waited in front of his dad, pushing his green hair back off his face from where the breeze was blowing over his glasses. He looked to be paying only a mild amount of attention as he was being handed a few slips of green paper. It reminded you of when you first met Mr. Holden, although he's probably not paying Cove to be friends with himself. Cove's dad seemed to feel your gaze somehow, and maybe you made a noise because a second later his eyes were on you. He waved you over with a smile. He looked happy to see you, but you still felt a little weird for getting caught. You gotta learn how to be more sneaky. You brushed your hands together to free them of sand, then jogged over to join the two. Good to see you again. What excitement are you up to, Cypher? Nothing. You toed the pavement in front of you. It would be nice to tell them about the snail you found, but you didn't know if they liked snails. After you finished answering the question, Mr. Holden's attention returned to Cove, who was preoccupied with folding the bills he had into a tiny rectangle. Sounds fun. It does? You weren't sure about that. You know, Cove was about to hit the stores by the beach. Why don't you go with him? You shrugged. Cove was in the process of making a similar motion. You didn't have anything else to do, and you haven't been to the stores in a few days. Maybe there was something new to look at. Maybe. Is that okay? I was going by myself, but I guess it is. You don't have to. Great. I'm sure you guys have loads of fun. Mr. Holden reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather wallet filled with money. You find it odd since your mom's only ever seemed to have cards in theirs. Here. He leaned in to pass a crisp 10 to Cove, giving a wink and a whisper. It's something for your friend, too. Sure.
Good kid.
That's my boy. Oh gosh.
Good kid.
Okay, so we accidentally went backwards. Cove's dad ruffled his son's hair as he straightened back up, the bill in his hand still held out towards the green-haired boy. Take care! Cove accepted the bill after a second and slipped it into his pocket. Then, with one last nod to his dad, he turned and started walking. You followed after him, intrigued with the possibilities this outing might bring. Cove straight towards the gentle tide creeping up the sand, and you fell into place beside him. It was a nice day, the sun was shining, there weren't many clouds in the sky, though the wind coming off the ocean kept it from being too hot. You took in a deep breath, enjoying the scent of salt and ocean air. I could only imagine. I've never been to the ocean. Ever. I've been close, living in Fredericksburg, Virginia, but I never had the opportunity. I was too overworked. Or at least the way they scheduled me, they made it where I stayed the whole day and I have a huge, 1 hour or 2 hour break in the middle of the day. So I ended up staying in the clinic throughout the whole entire day that I had to have work. It was a nice day, the sun was shining, and there weren't many clouds in the sky, but the wind coming off the ocean kept it from being too hot. Oh, I did this already. The scroll on the mouse is kind of getting in the way. I tend to fidget when I talk, and so I've been scrolling it like crazy while recording this. So sorry. When you looked at Cove, he was dragging his feet through the sand a little, and you slowed down to wait for him. His eyes searched the ground intently. Are you looking for shells? Cove startled a little at the sound of your voice and mumbled, sort of. See anything? You can let me know. You can manage that. You drop your view to the sand, walking carefully so you didn't step on any. You were good at finding shells. You had a lot of them at home, and always found new ones whenever you visit the beach. The comforting sound of the waves filled the silence with pleasant white noise, and you played a little game with yourself as you walked along, getting as close to the water as possible without getting wet. It resulted in you having to run up the sand quickly when a wave rushed in more than a few times. And although Ko threw a few glances your way, he didn't say a word. I remember saying this. What do you want to get from the beach? Oh, that was not the question. Hold on. What did you want to go to the shops for? Was the actual question. I need a new sand pail. Yeah? What happened to your old one? Cove narrowed his eyes, seeming to think deeply for a second.
Whoa.
It disappeared. What, really? Cove ducked his head down, lacing his fingers behind his back. Didn't seem like he was going to continue to nudge his arm. He really liked holding secrets from me. And you're starting to say he was opening up a little bit in this moment. How did it happen? Well, Cove opened his mouth and shut it again, considering. I took it to the beach one day. Uh-huh. When I got home, it wasn't anywhere. You left it there? No, it wasn't at the beach when I went back. Then you lost it. Disappeared.
So.
What about you? What do you do out here? I would have choose anywhere between looking at the fish and I like to build sand castles. And I did a lot of building sand castles when I was growing up. Last summer, Liz and I built one that was as tall as me. And sometimes they have sandcastle building competitions down by the boardwalk. Cool. I bet you could win. He smiled at Cove. Maybe the two of you will build one together one day. I did notice it in my first playthrough, but I didn't think this little vignette would come before the sandcastle moment. So technically, I should have been going from left to right throughout this whole thing. Technically. But I guess you can mix and match. Maybe you're just recollecting memories that are out of sequence. Once you reached the shopping area, the noise level grew exponentially. No longer just waves and footsteps, but the chatter of people enjoying the lovely summer day, the call of birds trying to find bits of food left behind, and lots of salespeople trying to get attention. You sniffed the air as you walked beside Cove. You could still smell the ocean, but there were other scents too now. Pizza, pretzels, hot donuts. It's nice. The energy surrounding the area seemed to fill you, and there was a bounce in your step as you began looking at all the familiar sights. Now, I deviated a little bit. I was beginning to realize that when I was a kid, I would have been a little bit more excited because there's a lot of stuff going on and I want to see what's going on. Because it is an adventure of sorts. So I would have been a little bit more energetic than I had selected previously. So we're going to see if that changes anything at the very end result. There were so many things to do, you didn't know where to begin. You look at Cove, hoping he was just as excited as you were. Cove was glancing from one side of the street to the other with a look in his aquamarine eyes that you couldn't quite work out. What's that? Cove pointed to a large crowd of people gathered near a few tables, with large colorful umbrellas blooming from the middles. You couldn't see past the adults who were blocking the way, but you knew there must be something worth seeing. Without another word, the two of you hurried over to see what all the commotion was about. Feast your eyes on the amazing Alexander! In the center of the crowd was a man with a tall hat and a funny green coat that had 3 long tails. There was a little table next to him with a cloth hanging over it that read The Amazing Alexander, glittery golden script. Why tell people his name if it's already on a sign? Cove hummed with understanding, then turned to walk away just as the amazing Alexander began shuffling a deck of cards. He bit your lip, reluctantly starting to follow after Cove again. He continued looking over his shoulder, however, wanting to see as much as he could before you got too far away. Hey! Not watching where you were going proved a bad idea as you bumped right into Cove. Oh, sorry. Did you want to stay or something? If that's okay. He briefly lifted his arms up his sides before returning them to place. Could have said so. With that, it began. The Magic Man pulled one card out of the deck, showing it to the curious onlookers. It was a 4 of diamonds. Watch closely. You did, squeezing through a few of the adult onlookers to get a better view. Suddenly, the man snapped his fingers and the card just disappeared. Wow! That look. Like, seriously, kid. The amazing Alexander, who had earned his title, turned his head and looked directly at you. He reached out with a kind smile. What's this behind your ear? You backed away. Stranger danger. It wasn't enough to deter him, and the crowd of people gathered behind you made it impossible to move any further. He smelled like popcorn and candy when he stepped closer, and he swallowed anxiously. You felt a tug, and then he pulled the 4 of diamonds out from behind your ear. What? You knew it couldn't really have come from your ear. You still didn't know how he'd done it. There was a light applause from the crowd. The man gave a deep bow. This is for you. The magician plucked a pair of balloons from a clump of them tied down to his table. Both were the shape of a dolphin instead of being a normal circle. And one from your friend too. Thank you for being my lovely assistant. Wow! Now you were really grateful he chose you. After that, he went to someone else in the crowd. Pick a card. Any card. My uncle does this every time he visits. Not the balloons, just the stuff with cards. Poe spoke plainly while reaching over to take the dolphin that had been designated for him. Maybe it wasn't so special. Poe was just ruining the fun. At least he had a fun time. You wonder if Ko's whole family was magic. I would have thought that he had a family magicians or something. Back then, my imagination really went wild. If so, he was lucky. The crowd started to clear some, and you noticed to the side there was a whole rack of brightly colored kaleidoscopes on display. I pick up the kaleidoscope. Oh! You shifted your balloon string to your other hand so you could bring the mysterious tunnel to your eye. A whole palette of colors appear right in front of you, spinning into all kinds of different shapes as you twist the end of the tube. Cove picked one up and looked through, twisting the tube at the end. After a second, he set it back on the rack, moving to the other side of the stall. He went under the awning, careful of his own floating dolphin, and you joined him. Do you have places like this in your old town? Cove blinked at you for a moment, and you wonder if you shouldn't have asked. You knew how much you missed that place. Not really. You nodded in understanding, looking over the stalls nearby. Oh, they're cute. While Cove looked at the sand pails, you were drawn to a table with colorful keychains laid out on it. They were sewn in the shape of sea creatures, and there was a plaque that read, "Handmade, stand proudly in front." There were lots of different types. You saw a dolphin, a shark, a crab, a turtle. I had selected the crab. And I'm surprised that these selections had color codings on it. So I wasn't sure if it really was dependent on personality types or not. Honestly, anyone of any sort of personality type would have selected any combination of this. Your hands stop on the crab, claws raising a tiny smile on his face. It had big eyes and little legs, and the fabric was smooth when you picked it up. You had seen a few crabs at the beach before, though they usually scuttle away before you got the chance to look at them closely. You liked the idea of having a crab all of your own, even as it's just a soft animal. You were instantly enamored. Checking the price, though, your heart fell. $6. You didn't know much about money, but you thought it was a lot to spend on one thing. You rarely had more than a $5 bill to your name. Is that what you want? Huh? Oh, it's $6. I didn't bring any money.
Alright.
It's fine. See, I'm a little bit torn. I would go, really, really? Or are you sure? Or you don't have to. So, if I remember right, I think it was this. Really, really? Are you sure? Cove took the keychain from your hands, and that was that. He was holding a small yellow bucket for himself, too. My dad told me to. You were a little nervous, but happy with your purchase nonetheless. It was nice of Cove's dad to let Cove buy something too. After Cove paid, the two of you step out the store side by side, your dolphin balloons knocking together and spiraling around in the air. You watch Cove hold up his new pail to his face, examining it thoroughly. Hey, Cove. Yeah? Thanks for getting it for me. Okay. It wasn't clear if he really accepted your thanks or not. What? You were going to thank him for the keychain again, but considering he only did it because his dad told him to, it probably didn't matter. Cove raised an eyebrow, but didn't push the issue. Cove looked further down the street where different food carts were lined up. He rested his non-cast arm over his stomach. Just as he did, yours let out a light growl. You haven't eaten since breakfast, and after all this wandering around, you were definitely ready for some lunch. Let's get some food. Yeah. You two wandered around a short while looking at all the delicacies that were available. Everything looked delicious, and as the different smells, both sweet and salty, wafted over to you, your stomach growled even louder. After passing up hot dogs, snow cones, ice cream, and pizza, you both agreed on pretzels. Cove got something sweet and cinnamon, and you... Chase! Honestly, I would have had the extra salt. But I want the cheesy one. You lick your lips hungrily as the vendor headed your pretzel over, ready to take a big bite. It was covered in gooey melted cheese, just the way you liked it. It seemed odd to get a dessert pretzel before eating normal food. Found an empty table close enough to the beach that the grids of the sand made terrible noises as he dragged the chairs out to sit down. These balloons are going to make it hard to eat. Poe placed his bucket on the table as he stared at his still balled up hand that was wrapped around the string. You opened your mouth to agree, or an idea hit you. Oh, I know! After carefully placing your pretzel somewhere it wouldn't get sandy, you took the balloon dolphin out of Cove's hand and tied it in a delicate bow around his wrist. Oh! Poe bounced his arm up and down in place, testing the stability of your knot. After watching his balloon jostle around but remain attached, he smiled satisfied. Can you help me too? I can tie it to my own wrist. He repeated the ritual. Poe struggled somewhat with the cast, restricting his fingers on his other hand, and a string already entangled around the other.
Okay.
Got it! The two of you spent a moment admiring your handiwork, both hands now free to allow easy munching on your pretzels. You bit into the doughy treat, savoring the taste on your tongue with a smile as you looked out over the ocean. After a time, you finished your pretzel. You were done before Cove. It was boring not having anything to do. Pulled on the string of your balloon to bring it out to your level. Then you held the dolphin in your hands, manipulating it to make it look like it was jumping through the air. If you turned to face towards the beach, it almost looked like it was swimming in the waves like a real dolphin. A laugh came from your side. When you glanced back at Cove, he had left the remaining part of his pretzel in the wrapper, and he was gripping his dolphin too. My dolphin's name is Sam, and they're just a regular old dolphin. I picked that one because of Samwise Gamgee, and I really could not pass up all the others. Well, I could not really pass up that name towards all the other options. Samwise is here in my heart. You sigh, thinking how great it would be to have a pet dolphin of your own. What's yours? Cove considered this question, placing the balloon against the table and resting his free arm across it in contemplation. It's with a loud pop. The dolphin exploded into ribbons. Oh no! For a second, all Cove did was gape in shock, like you. Then his cheeks puffed out, squinting his eyes, and you see tears starting to glisten. Now, I had done this, but looking back at it, I really have wanted to do this, but we're trying to stick to my original options to the best of my abilities. So we're gonna try that. You could have my balloon instead if you want it. Cove, look at you, frowning. I don't want yours. Oh. You felt bad for Cove, but were secretly glad. Really liked the little dolphin and weren't too eager to give it up. I don't care. His died. It wasn't even named. The dolphin just up and left. Cove spent the rest of the outing sniffling and didn't say much else. The passing of Cove's balloon was the last major event of your adventure. In the end, the two of you headed back late that afternoon. You separated on the beach, and while Cove went straight home with his brand new sand pail in hand, you decided to sit for a while. You watched the waves and the sunset, fiddling with your new keychain. Another summer day was drawing to a close. It had been nice for the most part. Hopefully there wouldn't be any tears next time. And that was shopping. Alrighty. So now we're going to progress to Grown Up. One sweltering summer day, you were in your living room with Cove, listening to the sounds of the birds chattering outside the window while you lay across the rug on the floor. Cove's dad had dropped him off earlier, and your moms had left the two of you along with Lizzie to play amongst yourselves. It had been too hot to go outside in the afternoon. At least according to Mommy. So your sister was starting to get impatient waiting for her golf class that evening. The three of you had had trouble finding something fun to do. The beach and the playground were off limits. You thought it was too warm for anything like playing with your fuzzy toy animals. Then suddenly, a light came to Lizzie's big brown eyes and her smile spread wide across her face. Having an idea gave her a new wave of energy. Since we're stuck inside, we should be adults. They don't play outdoors anyway. They're always inside and telling everybody they're too busy to play.
Why?
Why?
Duh.
I said why. It would be fun, duh. What do they do inside that we don't? Besides, use the phone a lot. Excluding a small huff, Lizzie decides to ignore Cove.
What do you think?
Zypher, what do you think? Do you want to? Cove said it. That doesn't sound fun. Come on. Neither of you had a single idea all day. You could tell that Lizzie wasn't about to give in anytime soon. Fine. With her victory against Cove under her belt, Lizzie turned to you, triumphant. You kept hesitating. You looked down at your hands, still unsure. Apparently tired of waiting for you to make up your mind, Lizzie sighed. Fine. Go play over there, Cypher. You flinched from her raised voice. It definitely wouldn't be fun to join now. Me and Cove would do it ourselves. It's decided. He looked ahead blankly.
I guess.
I guess. Once again, I don't know if you guys could hear the voice acting, so there may be some redundancies, in case they said the same exact thing. Now, go on. Nodding goodbye to the two of them, you trailed off to find something else to do. Like you promised, Cove stayed put with Lizzie for the next couple of hours while you... I would have either built a fort or read a book, and I was a really heavy book reader when I was a kid. You could hear them talking as you sat with a book by the window. You opened the picture book in your lap and merely got lost in the story. It's about a little donkey who grew up on a farm, making friends with all the animals and pretending to be like them. You liked the part where she swam around in the pond with the ducks. It always made you laugh. You finished that book and went to get another, but before you could choose one, you noticed that Liz and Cove's voices were getting much louder. Curious about what was happening, you craned your neck to hear them better. At first, you mostly only picked up on Lizzie's high-pitched shouting, giving orders, telling Cove what to do, yelling about sports and the Olympics. Talking about the Olympics, that's really out there. That was pretty typical for Lizzie, so there was nothing new there. But then you start hearing Cove more and more as time went on. It sounded like they weren't having a very good time. You went to see what's going on. You abandoned your cozy reading spot to go check what was happening with them. Are you okay in there? From up close, you could see that your sister was red-faced and pouting, while Cove mostly just looked confused. Neither one paid you mind.
Cove.
Shut up, Cove! You're being so unreasonable. You... I don't get what you want. This game doesn't make sense. It does! You have to be realistic. I said that. But you're not. The argument was so high-strung that it was making you a little bit uncomfortable. You had no idea what to do to make them stop at this point. It seemed like the two of them would just keep working each other up as long as they could. Had the two of them been arguing like this whole time? Thankfully, like a grinning card angel, Mom went into the room. Ah! Lizzie rushed to her, hanging on to the hem of her shirt, poking out her tongue at Cove. Lizzie, Cypher, it's time to get ready to go.
You alright with that?
Sorry you had to leave already, Cove. Their mommy said she'll walk you home so you won't be left in the cove. Cove is still glaring at Lizzie, his face flushed with anger. I can go by myself. What? Without giving Mom a chance to stop him, Cove stood up and stalked out of the room, shoulders drawn tight. Okay. Worried, Mom turned to look down at you and Lizzie. You two were playing nice with our new friend, weren't you? I was a tattletailer when I was a kid. I admit it. Usually, I learned a really hard lesson at the very beginning of my elementary year that fibbing is only going to cause more problems. You could really keep up with the fib, and it gets too outrageous as the time goes on. And eventually, it just fell apart. And I learned a hard lesson that, it's better off to tell the truth, even though it's not as exciting or anything. I didn't tell the fib because I wanted to write stories. I told the fib because I honestly thought it was true. And I was embarrassed that I was wrong. And thus, I couldn't correct myself and kept trying to keep up with it. So it was really, really tough, and I learned the hard way. So in my later elementary years and up, I always believed telling the truth is not a lot of hard work to do. I mean, it sucks being caught in a lie, or it sucks that you're wrong about something. But it blows over very quickly, and people tend to forget about it later. They were fighting, Lizzie and Cove, for the whole time. His sister's jaw dropped, looking betrayed as Mom put her hands on her hips. Elizabeth, I told you to be kind to him. He's having a hard time right now. Lizzie's mouth closed back up, replaced by a tiny frown. I know, I tried, but he was no buts, lady. We both know you can show someone a great time when you put your mind to it. We're going to apologize to Cove and his dad over the phone when he gets home from work tonight. Lizzie hung her head, dragging a foot across the ground in front of her. Okay, Mom. Good girl. You caught pieces of Lizzie sulking to herself about how it was his fault too. It was over. All right, we better get a move on. Let's go, kids. Neolani, where did you leave the car keys? Mom hustled you all out of the door, and you noticed during the car ride to golf practice that Lizzie was quieter than usual. She was usually the first one to request which music to listen to in the car, but she didn't say a thing. Your parents noticed she wasn't in a mood to be bothered. They gave her space, and Mommy just asked you what you like to listen to. You picked your favorite song. It always made the car ride more fun. Eventually, Lizzie came around and started singing along with you. You both knew all the words, and your moms even sang along too. I didn't realize this back then, but I'm realizing it now, how that it was all gray. But when you do this, it's this nice, taupey, warm brown. So that's a really good nod in trying to showcase tone and mood in the story, visually. So I like that. I really like that a lot. When the car ride was over, you spent the twilight hour watching Lizzie hit things with other girls her age. You didn't know much about golf, but you could tell she really liked it. So you sat with your moms and tried to puzzle it out. It was nice sitting outside after being cooped up in the house all day, and you stretch out your legs to let the last few minutes of sun warm your skin. When the sun was finally out of sight, dipping behind the horizon, you all got ready to leave. Instead of going straight home, your moms took the family out to dinner. You went to a restaurant you had all been going to ever since you could remember. Earlier, you could only count the tail end of your sister's argument with Cove. but you could kind of tell that all of this helped Lizzie be less angry. The car ride home was quiet, with only the radio providing escape from silence. Lizzie had been in better spirits now. The closer you got to your neighborhood, the more she wiggled in her seat and frowned out the window. She knew what was coming when you all got back home. Clearly, she was dreading it. Soon enough, Mom was turning onto your street, then reversing into the driveway. When she cut the ignition, it was dead silent. No one spoke, only unbuckled their seatbelts and opened their doors. Lizzie was the last one out. Once everyone was inside and done taking off their shoes, she propped her hands on her hips. Now then, Mr. Holden's car is in his driveway, so we should be back from work. That's good news, isn't it, Elizabeth? You and Cove can hash things out before the day's done. Lizzie didn't complain and put up a fight. Her head ducked so she didn't have to meet anyone's eyes. She nodded once. Good. Let's move this to the kitchen. Mom went over to the house phone, the rest of you following behind her. Mommy put a gentle hand on Lizzie's shoulder as they walked side by side. You watched them from the back. This was only happening because you told on Lizzie. You didn't like doing it, but you had to. Being a tattletale didn't feel good, and you wouldn't want someone else to tell your moms everything you did. Still, your mom had asked directly, and you wanted to be a liar even less. Four of you stood around the kitchen in a lopsided square. All eyes were on Lizzie, who kept her gaze on her feet. You remember the number for Cove's house, don't you, honey? Lizzie jerked her head into another nod, sullen. Without further prompting, she stepped forward and she began to dial. Mom reached over and pressed a button on the base. Suddenly, you could hear the phone ringing. She turned on the speaker. The phone rang a couple of times, then stopped. Mr. Holden's warm voice came through the other end. Evening, Holden residence. Lizzie looked over at Mommy, unsure. She nodded encouragingly. Hi, Mr. Holden. It's, Lizzie. Can I talk to Cove?
Absolutely.
Lizzie flared. What a surprise. But of course I could say hey to the boy. He sounded cheery as usual, though definitely meant it when he said it was a surprise. You thought hard, and you were sure that your sister had never called Cove's house before. Mom spoke up before Mr. Holden or Lizzie could say anything more. Her arms were crossed over her chest, her lips pursed. Hi, Cliff. Neilani, Zephyr, and I are here too. Good evening. We're sorry to bother you so late. You said nothing to Cove's dad. You shifted from one foot to another but remained where you were. Oh, the gang's all here, huh? Something the matter? His voice grew a bit concerned. Mommy was quick to reassure him. No, well, yes, but it's going to be okay. Lizzie and Cove got into a bit of a fight today. We're hoping that the two of them could talk and make up. Is this a good time for you and Cove?
What?
A fight? Cove didn't tell me anything about that when I came home. It does explain the funk he's been in tonight. He chuckled lightly. Despite that, it didn't seem like he really thought it was funny. Anyway, it's good he didn't catch us at a bad time. Oh, go grab him. There was some shuffling on the other end. It must not have gone far because you could still hear him calling out. Cove, there's someone on the phone for you. After a beat of silence, there was more muffled talking from Cove's dad. Come on, bud. Lizzie called just so she could talk to you. It took a bit of a back and forth, though the conversation seemed one-sided, since you couldn't hear Cove properly. Eventually, Cove took the phone from his dad.
Hi.
Hello? Hey, it's Lizzie. Yeah, I know. Dad told me. Cove's tone was defensive. Lizzie turned to Mom, scowling. One stern look from her, though, and Lizzie turned away.
Sorry.
I just called to say, I'm sorry. We're not playing with you today. I won't do it again. Well, I should have said I'm not playing nice with you today, but let's move on. Lizzie's eyes were downcast, her voice low. You could tell she felt uncomfortable apologizing to Cove in front of everyone. She was still being genuine about feeling bad. Cove must have realized that too, because he sighed quietly. I want gold. Lizzie was momentarily stunned silent by the demand. You have no idea what it meant. All right, you win the gold. Okay, I guess I'm sorry too. A sense of relief washed over everyone at his acceptance of the apology. Mom uncrossed her arms while Mommy's shoulders relaxed. Lizzie's eyebrows raised up. You wonder if she thought that he refused her apology. Dad, can I get off the phone now? You couldn't see him, but it was obvious that Cole felt awkward about the situation. He had come off uncomfortable the entire time, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could go back to your room if you want. Be sure to say goodbye first. Um, bye, Lizzie. Bye. With that said, Cove must have handed the phone to his dad and left, since Mr. Holden spoke up.
That's a relief.
Well, all's well that ends well, as they say. Thanks for arranging this. I'm sure he appreciates it. As Mom replied, Lizzie tugged on Mommy's hand to catch her attention. Can I go now, too?
Good job.
Sure, sweetie. Thank you so much for apologizing to Cove. Mom flashed a brief smile at Lizzie and nodded her agreement. Giving permission to leave, Lizzie scurried off towards the stairs. She seemed to be feeling much better with the incident behind her. Mom and Mommy returned to the phone, taking it off the speaker. They continued talking to Mr. Holden. You couldn't tell what about. You were glad that was the end of it all. Lizzie and Cove might not get along, and probably still won't, but they weren't mad at each other anymore. Mom and Mommy weren't upset either. Everything was finally back to normal. With that thought, you returned to your own room with a spring in your step. Alrighty, so we are done with the entire childhood, and we're going to let the summer end. So we got... Okay, we have a little bit of time to allow it to end. So let's continue. Now, I'm curious to see how much it changed, because there were some slight differences I've done. Oh, this one. But I don't think it's going to change the character's stats or anything. I'll never get tired of that view. You sit beside your moms and Lizzie as the four of you watch the sun dip into the ocean somewhere far, far away. I like to imagine it cooling off in the water, resting itself before getting ready to shine brightly again tomorrow. That was a fun day. I didn't know they had magicians in the shopping street now. Neither did I. Oh no, we're so dull. Let's get out more often. He didn't do real magic, Mom. How did you figure that one out?
Yeah.
'Cause I know. That's not what real magic looks like. Oh, Lizzie dear, there's all kinds of magic in this world. Lizzie gave Mommy a suspicious look, but didn't dispute the claim. Well, we can't sit out here all night. Time to hurry home and get cooking. Who's helping with dinner? Lizzie immediately let out a groan. On, summer's almost over. Protest was obvious. You could practically see the school bus on the horizon. Yes, sir. I didn't realize I inserted bus in this. So just imagine the school bus coming over the horizon and go. Vroom. All right, let's just move on. The protest was obvious. You could practically see the school on the horizon. Certainly don't want to spend your last bits of freedom cooking dinner. Do that any other day. Uh. Oh. Was it this? I think it was this. Or, no, I think it was this. You put on your best puppy dog eyes. Oh, don't look at me like that. Like what? Soon, we'll have homework and reading to do. We can't do work now, too. Lizzie made her case, then stomped her foot into the ground. You mimic her, feeling that would add something to the argument. Well,
No.
oh, come on, Pam. I could help you with dinner. Mommy leaned in for a hug, and you knew that you were very close to victory.
Okay.
Alright. But as soon as dinner's ready, your lot are coming inside, understood? Yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. Ah, so much to do, so little time. Maybe I could still get the seashell bracelet and tiny trinkets. Oh, maybe the playground. The fireflies will be coming out, right? You suddenly made your own plans. Lizzie had her own ideas what she wanted to do, but where are you going to do? A strong gust of wind made you shiver. Lizzie huffed as she wrapped her arms around herself.
Rude.
Doesn't the wind know the summer's not over yet? That's all Lizzie said before abruptly turning on her heel and headed off the direction your mothers had gone. Where are you going? I'm going to my room. I have lots to plan if I want to make the most of tomorrow. He thought this over, looking off towards the ocean again. Lizzie didn't wait. For long, she was disappearing off down the road. You stayed outside. You watched Lizzie run off, twisting the lips as they considered what to do. In the end, the pretty sky and the soothing sound of the waves won out. You strayed off the path, grinning at the feel of the sand, quickly filling in the empty space on your flip-flops. That was fun for a while, but you grew bored eventually. How else can you enjoy the remainder of your time at the beach? I think if I remember right, I drew. Yeah, I drew. Because that was something that was different from all the other choices I've done in this segment. You looked around until you found a sturdy twig that made your way to the shoreline. There, you doodled and wrote a few words. It was a race against the waves, which will roll in to erase your hard work. It was a great evening, but soon enough you had your fill and are ready to join the rest of your family back home. Not too much further down, you spotted a familiar green head of hair moseying along the shore. You went to see what Cove is up to. Curious, you strayed off your path and walked over to him. Cove knelt down, picking up something you quickly identified as a smooth rock. He reared his arm back, then tossed it out into the ocean. Okay, let me recount. You were impressed over how far he got it to go. It sailed way out into the sea. It's a pretty good toss. That was pretty neat. It was a long throw, but he didn't care to try for that. The rock sunk kind of, like a rock, and fell back almost right after he tossed it. I would suspect that he probably had done this many times, otherwise he wouldn't attempt to do this in the first place. You look for your own rock. That's one I remember choosing. Deciding to join Cove, you searched nearby for any rocks or shells you could throw too. Cove jumped a little when he noticed you. You gave a shrug and a smile, realizing you were sort of forgotten to announce yourself. Found a shell that would suit your purposes. A smile growing as you toss it as hard as you can, and landed with a wet-sounding thunk a few feet away and slid down into the water. You looked over at Cove. He didn't seem to notice that his throw had been more impressive. Cove was looking down his cast, scratching idly at the pink surface, even though you're pretty sure he could. His brows were fur, and there was a frown on his face.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. I had to wear this cast for ages. I can't even swim. When do you get it off? Ro- Cove shrugged and didn't say anything. For a second, you thought maybe he didn't know, but finally he sighed. A few weeks. That's not a very long at all. That wasn't too bad, you thought. At least you'll be able to play normally at recess. And you sometimes got to go swimming during the school year, so maybe he can make up for the lost time then. Cove let out a huff, hopping down into the sand. I can't believe summer's almost over. He sat down next to him, nodded in agreement, regardless of the sudden topic change. I don't want to go to school. I mean, I would, but I don't want to go to a new school. I think it would be the same school as you and Lizzie. My dad said something about that. So why don't you want to go? It's nice as far as school goes. You only ever been to the one school, but you were sure that his old school wouldn't have been that much better. Then again, he did have to make new friends and meet new teachers. It would be kind of scary. Cove shook his head, then wrapped his good arm around his knees as he drew them to his chest. You heard a sniffling sound, and when you took a good look at his face, you realized that his eyes were wet.
I want to go home.
I want to go home. You weren't sure what to do. It felt weird just to leave him here crying, but what can you say that would help? You frowned a little, starting to stand. Okay, well, bye then. Cove gave his head a small shake. No, I want to go back home. Right. Cove wanted to go back to his old home, the one that sat waiting someplace far from here, the one he would bring up whenever he felt less sad. It had been a while since he had moved in, but he didn't seem to feel any better about being here. He settled back down in the sand, trying to consider what to do. This can be your new home. It's a really nice home, if you give it a chance. Cove didn't respond to that. He just tightened his arm around his knees, resting his chin on them. You're not gonna leave, right? You'll still be around. The question was a little surprising. Of course. Your parents would have mentioned if you were going to move or something, right? After a second, Cove gave a low nod. Once I get my cast off, we could go swimming. You were fine with him changing the subject again. Okay. You had to say swimming did sound fun, even if it was already getting chilly out. Cove smiled, then looked back to the waves. My dad keeps saying I'll get used to everything eventually. That I'll feel better then. It used to make me angry. I didn't want to get used to everything. He spared a glance over to Cove and see the anger had slipped off his face in favor of something almost puzzled. But maybe that would be okay after all, as long as I really do feel better. Can't see it. The two of you sat quietly, just taking in the sounds of the waves. Lost in thought, you started a bit when you heard a faint, familiar sound. The sound of your mom shouting your name. You looked over your shoulder, realizing it was probably time for dinner. You guys really been sitting out here that long? You stood and dusted the sand off of yourself. My mom's calling. It's time for dinner. You should come. Cove looked up at you, expression screaming reluctance, yet ultimately, okay. When you smiled, Cove returned with one of his own. But the two of you couldn't stay there in your own little boat any longer. You were being called forward. So the both of you ran off towards your house, leaving the waves and summer behind. And I love this animation. That was beautiful. In between. Alrighty, so I can't save yet, so we're gonna have to progress through this. This is what they meant about changing things up before the next set. If I remember my middle school, I think I let my hair down. So I didn't have the ponytail. I think that was it. Let me check. I didn't have acne until high school, if I remember right. I also had glasses, but the glasses here didn't really fit. Scars. Did I wear skirts in middle school? I don't think I did. I wore dresses because of orchestra. I did have watches. I didn't do hats. I did necklaces. Okay. And we're done with that. Oh, wow. See, there was an update. Oh, they had a change? You could change it? You could change it. They did an update just before I started this session. So, wow. Actually, no. We're gonna let the story steer the course. We're gonna let the story steer the course. We're gonna do that. Choose to customize Cove yourself or let his prior experiences determine it. Neither. We're gonna be surprised. August ended, September began. It was time to go back to school. Lizzie groaned and complained the entire first week. She hated going to classes. Still, there were interesting things to do that couldn't be done anywhere else. We weren't sure how Cove felt about it. He was enrolled that year. That was like a sign. Cove could be staying in Sunset Bird for a while. At school, he was alright, but kept his distance from the other kids, for what you saw anyway. He would pass by you in the hallways as if you didn't know each other. That was just fine with you. That year, the divorce of Cove's parents was finalized. You overheard your parents talking about it, saying Cove's dad got full custody. Yay! At first, you worried that meant bad news. It made Mr. Holden cry, apparently. Then you found out it meant Cove could keep living with his dad. He would only stay with his mom for a few weeks of the year. Cove cried too, for different reasons, you thought. It seemed like Cove and his dad might move again, but Mr. Holden decided to stay after all. Mom asked him about it once. He said he didn't want to uproot Cove's life a second time. Mr. Holden tried to get Cove to like Sunset Bird more. He kept encouraging his son to go out and see the place. Sometimes Mr. Holden volunteered you to spend time with Cove. You weren't sure how well it worked, though. Cove never talked to anyone about what happened with his parents and withdrew whenever it was brought up. It was hard for him, yet nobody knew how to help. Eventually, Cove stopped crying on his own. You couldn't understand what had changed. I suspect he realized how bad his mom was. Or something happened between him and his mom, and he just realized that maybe he was better off where he is. Maybe. Though you never asked, you doubted he would tell you. After that, it felt like things had gone back to normal. But what was normal didn't stay the same. Years passed and suddenly you were in middle school. You weren't a kid anymore, you were 13 years old. That officially made you a teen, even if your sister didn't agree. The toys and crayons that used to litter every free space in your room have been packed away somewhere, replaced by new hobbies. There were other things too. Cove's cast got taken off. It was weird to see him without it initially. Underneath the pink plaster ended up being a long, thin scar that snaked across his forearm. Cove's chest puffed out in pride when someone drew attention to it. It's a battle scar. He also went through a major growth spurt. He was the tallest student in his class for 2 years in a row. He'll probably hold that spot again next time. In class, people knew him for more than just being tall. He also stood out because of how well he did in gym and other athletic situations. Over the years, he began opening up more too, some talking amicably with other kids or neighbors from time to time. And the only kid that came to visit the neighborhood when you're little, Shiloh, well, he was gone. He and his mom moved back south because of work just 1 year after Cove came to Sunset Bird. It had been really upsetting when he left. Lizzie was inconsolable for weeks. But nobody talked about Shiloh anymore. It was a long time ago. You learned some heartbreaking things became less sad the further away they were, even if they never gotten any better. That was sad in its own way. Things at the house were different too. We still live in the same house and all that, but it wasn't how it was before. Ma dyed her hair purple, wanting something new, and liked it so much she kept it dyeing. You remember calling her Mommy as a kid. Something like that seemed awkward nowadays. You're much too old for the word. Lacey felt too mature for her nickname too. She insisted on everyone calling her Elizabeth, so you did. Your mom too gave her permission to go to places other than the playground and shopping street, which she took advantage of. You rarely see her around the old neighborhood. In fact, she hardly spent time with you the way she did before. Elizabeth instead associated more and more girls from the school who were her own age, which is totally fine. Maybe the difference between 13 and 15 was greater than the difference between 8 and 10. You started befriending new people yourself, like Derek Suarez. He didn't live in the neighborhood or go to the same school. What happened was his and Cove's dad struck up a business partnership a few months ago. Since then, Derek will pop in the area now again. It seemed Mr. Suarez was happy to let Derek tag along into his work, if Derek had the time for it. Without a doubt, everyone and everything around you had changed, in small and big ways too. You had too. As time went by, though, it was easy to settle into this new normal. Then, before you know it, school was over and summer vacation had come again. And this is where we're going to stop. So, thank you for watching this episode. If you like it, please go ahead and give me a like. Let me know what you think down below. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It will help you know when I'm going to upload these. I am trying to upload these on Friday, but I don't know when on Friday, so that way you know when I do upload it, when you hit that bell and have that subscribe button. And once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!